Spicy ladies, picture this. You're sitting across from him, and there's this quiet, unshakable bond. Like he sees you, really sees you, and wouldn't dream of being anywhere else. How do we get there? That's what we're unpacking. 10 secrets I've gathered from years of coaching, my own messy but magical love journey, and those moments where I've watched love grow in the simplest ways. So, grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into these ideas that'll shift how you connect. Number 1, the power of being his sanctuary. What if I told you the secret to his deepest love isn't chasing him? It's being the one place he can always land. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. Years ago, I was dating a guy, let's call him Sam, who had this way of carrying the world on his shoulders. He'd walk through the door after a long day, frayed at the edges, his brow furrowed, his voice clipped. I could see it, the weight of whatever he'd been wrestling with, but my instinct was to jump in, to fix it all. I'd pepper him with questions. What happened? Who said what? Let me help. I thought that's what love looked like, rushing in with solutions, proving I could be his partner in every sense. But one night, something shifted. He came home, same tension in his jaw, and I didn't say a word. I just sat there on the couch, a glass of wine in hand, letting him breathe. I didn't push, didn't prod, just watched him sink into the silence beside me. After a while, he turned, his eyes softer, and said, "You're my calm." Those 3 words stuck with me like a melody I couldn't shake. Being his sanctuary wasn't about doing, it was about being. That moment with Sam wasn't just a fleeting sweet nothing. It was a revelation, a crack of light through the fog of how I'd been approaching love. I'd spent so much time trying to be the hero, the problem solver, that I'd missed the quieter, deeper truth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can offer is a safe place to land. And that's what we're diving into today, the power of being his sanctuary. It's not about grand gestures or endless chatter. It's about trust, about creating a space where he feels safe, seen, and free from judgment. It's significant because men, just like us, crave a haven amid life's storms, a place where the masks can drop, where the battles can pause. And when you become that haven, something extraordinary happens. He starts loving you not just as a partner, but as his refuge, his anchor in a world that's always spinning a little too fast. Now, let's unpack this idea, because it's not as simple as it sounds. It's rich, layered, and honestly a little mind-bending when you really sit with it. Being his sanctuary isn't about fixing his problems or filling every silence with words. It's about holding space, 2 little words that carry a universe of meaning. Holding space means you're there, fully present, without the urge to rush in and patch things up. It's about listening, not just to what he says, but to what he doesn't. I learned this the hard way, long before that night with Sam. In an earlier relationship, I dated a man, let's call him David, who was quieter, more reserved. He'd come home from work, slump into a chair, and I'd launch into action. "Rough day? Tell me everything. We'll figure it out." I thought I was being supportive, but he'd pull back, his silence growing thicker. One evening, I pushed too hard. "Why won't he talk?" And he snapped, "Because I don't need a therapist. I need a break." Ouch. It stung, but it landed. He didn't need me to dissect his day. He needed me to let him be, to let him unravel in his own time. That lesson lingered, and it bloomed fully with Sam. That night on the couch wasn't about me playing the perfect girlfriend. It was about stepping out of my own need to control the moment and into his need for peace. And here's where it gets real. This isn't just a sweet story. It's a principle I've seen work wonders in the couples I've coached over the years. Take Tara, a woman I worked with a while back. She was married to a guy who'd come home stressed. Long hours, a boss who rode him hard, and she'd feel this itch to get him talking. "Talk to me," she'd say, her voice edging into a nag. "What's wrong? Don't shut me out." She meant well. She loved him, wanted to help, but he'd retreat further, building a wall she couldn't climb. When we started working together, I asked her, "What if you didn't push? What if you just sat there, close, and let him come to you?" She looked at me like I'd suggested she sprout wings, but she tried it. One night, he walked in, same dark cloud over him, and instead of her usual barrage, she sat on the couch, sipped her tea, and said, "I'm here when you're ready." No pressure, no demands, just a quiet invitation. He didn't say much at first, just sank beside her, but after a while, he started talking, slowly, then all at once. "Work's a mess," he admitted, and she listened, ear on, advice off unless he asked. Over weeks, that shift deepened their bond. He'd seek her out, not because she demanded it, but because she'd become his soft landing. This idea of being his sanctuary, it's about trust in its purest form. Trust that he'll open up when he's ready. Trust that your presence is enough. It's significant because so many of us, myself included, grow up thinking love is loud, active, a constant doing. We're taught to prove our worth by fixing, by filling every gap. But what if the real power lies in stillness? What if the deepest love grows in the spaces we leave open? I think back to my own mother, a woman who navigated a 30-year marriage with a man who wasn't big on words. She'd tell me, "When your dad's quiet, I don't poke. I pour tea, sit near, and he comes around." She wasn't passive, she was wise. She knew that trust isn't built by forcing someone's hand. It's built by offering a hand to hold when they're ready to reach. Let's break this down a bit more, because it's not always intuitive, especially when emotions run high. Picture him coming home after a fight with a friend or a brutal day at work. Your instinct might be to jump in. "What's wrong? Let's solve it." And sure, sometimes he'll want that. He might need your brain to untangle a mess. But more often, especially in those raw moments, he's not looking for a solution. He's looking for a reprieve. I've seen this play out in my own life beyond Sam. There was a time, years later, when I was with a different partner. Let's call him James. He was a thinker, always processing, and when he'd hit a wall, I'd feel this urge to dissect it with him. "Tell me what's going on," I'd say, leaning in, ready to strategize. But one evening, after a rough patch with his family, he came over, shoulders slumped, and I caught myself mid-question. Instead, I grabbed a blanket, tossed it over us, and just sat there, my head resting near his. No words, just warmth. After a while, he sighed, deep, like he'd been holding his breath for days, and said, "This is what I needed. Not my fixes, not my chatter, just me, their steady presence he could lean into." That's the beauty of being his sanctuary. It's not about losing yourself in his needs. It's about meeting him where he is. And here's where it gets practical, because I know you're wondering, okay, but how do I do this? It starts small. Next time he walks in looking like the world's chewing him up, resist the urge to play detective. Pour a drink, water, wine, whatever fits, and sit near him. Don't ask a million questions, just one maybe, "Rough day?" Then let it hang there, light, no pressure. If he talks, listen, really listen, not planning your next line. If he doesn't, that's okay too. Your nearness says, "I'm not going anywhere." I coached a woman, Emily, who mastered this. Her fiancé would storm in, stressed from his startup, and she'd been the type to grill him. "What's wrong now?" She shifted, sat on the porch swing, patted the spot beside her, and said, "Whenever you want." He'd join her, silent at first, then spill. The investors bailed. She'd nod, "That sucks," and let him keep going. Over time, he'd seek that swing, that space, because it was his refuge, and she was the heart of it. This concept's depth lies in its simplicity. It's not about grand heroics. It's about quiet strength. And it's mind-bending when you think about how counterintuitive it feels. We're wired to act, to fill silence with noise. But what if silence is the loudest love song? What if doing less lets him feel more? I've seen it solve so many relationship puzzles. Those moments where he pulls away, feeling smothered or misunderstood. Take Tara's husband. He wasn't shutting her out because he didn't care. He was drowning in his own head, and her pushing made it worse. When she became his sanctuary, that wall crumbled. Not because she demanded entry, but because she offered a door he could walk through at his own pace. It's the same with Emily's fiancé. He'd been retreating not from her, but from the pressure to perform, to explain himself on command. When she gave him that breathing room, he didn't just come back. He stayed, loving her deeper because she'd become his peace. Now, let's linger here a bit longer, because this idea of sanctuary, it's not just about him. It's a two-way street, and that's the twist that makes it so powerful. Being his safe place doesn't mean you vanish into his needs, losing your own voice or spark. It's about balance, holding space for him while still standing in your own. I learned this with Sam too. That night on the couch, I wasn't just some passive figure. I was there, sipping my wine, living my moment too. I'd had my own day, my own stresses, but I chose to set them aside, not erase them. And here's where it gets real. When you're his sanctuary, he starts wanting to be yours too. Sam began noticing my quiet days. "You okay?" he'd ask, pulling me close. It wasn't instant, but it grew because trust flows both ways. Tara saw this with her husband. After weeks of her being as calm, he'd catch her off nights. "Come here," he'd say, wrapping an arm around her. Emily's fiancé did the same. After months on that swing, he'd bring her coffee when she was down. "Your turn," he'd grin. This reciprocity, it's the heartbeat of this secret. It solves that marriage problem where he pulls away, feeling smothered, because you're not demanding his soul on a platter. You're offering a space he can choose to enter. And when he does, he brings something back, his own care, his own love. It's not about sacrificing yourself. It's about creating a cycle where you both thrive. I think of my own parents again. My mom's tea pouring wasn't weakness. It was her way of saying, "I'm steady," and my dad would return it, fixing her car or holding her when she cried. That's the dance. Sanctuary isn't a one-sided gift. It's a shared one. But let's dig deeper, because this isn't always easy. It takes practice, patience, and a little rewiring. We live in a world that screams, "Do more, be more," and stepping back feels wrong, almost lazy. I wrestle with that. Early on with Sam, I'd think, am I failing him by not jumping in? But I'd watch him relax beside me, his breathing slow, and realize, this is doing something huge. It's active in its stillness, powerful in its restraint. And it's not about never stepping in. Sometimes he'll need your advice, your fire. I coached a woman, Rachel, whose partner lost his job. She tried the sanctuary thing, sat quiet, let him stew, but he'd look at her, "What do I do?" That's when she shifted. "I'm here, and I think you've got options. Want to talk it through?" She was still as calm, but she met him where he was. It's a balance, knowing when to hold space and when to fill it, guided by him, not your own itch to act. This idea, it's a lens for so many struggles. Think of those property disputes that tear couples apart. Money fights, stress piling up. He's pacing, ranting about the lawyer, and you're tempted to match his heat. We'll figure it out. But what if you sat, steady? "I'm with you, take a breath." That sanctuary cuts through the noise. He feels you're his ally, not another battle. Or those marriage moments where he's distant, buried in his phone. You can nag, pay attention. But try this, sit near, touch his arm, whenever you're ready. He'll feel the pull, not forced but chosen. It's mind-bending because it flips the script. Less push, more pull. Less noise, more depth. So, where does this leave us? Being his sanctuary is about trust. Trusting him to come to you. Trusting yourself to be enough without fixing everything. It's significant because it's the root of love that lasts. Not the flashy stuff, but the steady, quiet kind. And here's the twist that makes it sing. Giving him peace doesn't dim your own light. It lights up your spark too. When I stopped chasing Sam's storms, I found my own calm. Time to sip my wine, to breathe, to be me. Tara found it. Her husband's openness gave her room to relax. Emily felt it. Her fiancé's return to the swing let her exhale. It's a two-way gift. You hold space, he fills it, and suddenly you're both glowing. That's the bridge to what's next. Being his sanctuary solves that disconnect where he retreats, feeling overwhelmed. But it's not the whole story. What if giving him peace actually ignites your own fire? What if standing strong as his haven makes you shine brighter as your own person? That's where we're headed. Our next secret, how shining as your own star pulls him closer, not further away. Because love isn't just about being there. It's about being you fully, radiantly, in a way he can't resist. Number 2, shine as your own star. Ever wonder why the women who glow on their own seem magnetic? I mean, the ones who walk into a room and you can't quite pin why, but you're drawn to them, like moths to a flame, except the flame's steady, warm, not burning out. That's where this secret hit me, and it came at a time when I needed it most. After things fizzled with Sam, you remember him from that sanctuary moment. I found myself lost. I poured so much into being his calm, his soft landing, that when it ended, I wasn't sure who I was without him. I'd sit on my couch, staring at the walls, feeling this quiet ache. Not just for him, but for me. Then one day, I dug out an old set of paints I hadn't touched since college. I started brushing colors onto a canvas. Nothing fancy, just swirls of blue and gold. And something woke up inside me. Hours slipped by, and I didn't notice until Sam, yes, he popped by to grab a forgotten jacket, stood in the doorway, watching. He didn't say much at first, just stared, then murmured, "You're alive like this." Those words landed heavy, not because he was still in my life, but because I felt it too. I was alive, and he couldn't look away. That moment wasn't just a fluke. It was a lifeline, a thread I've tugged on ever since. And it's the heart of this second secret, shining as your own star. This is about personal growth, about finding that spark within you that doesn't need anyone else to ignite it. It's significant because you're light. Your unique, radiant, messy, beautiful light doesn't just brighten your world. It draws him in deeper than any chase or plea ever could. When you chase your passions, when you build a life that excites you, you're not sitting around waiting for his love to define you. You're crafting something he wants to be part of, something he can't help but love. And here's the kicker. It's not about him at all. Not really. It's about you stepping into your own power, and that's what makes it irresistible. Let me paint this picture a little clearer, because it's not abstract. It's real, tangible, something I've lived and seen unfold in others. After Sam, those painting nights became my ritual. I'd lose myself in the colors, the brushstrokes, the way a blank page turned into something wild in mine. I wasn't thinking about love or relationships. I was thinking about me, about what made my chest hum with quiet joy. And yet, that shift didn't stay solo. Friends noticed, "You're different," they'd say. And when I started dating again, the men I met felt it too. One guy, let's call him Nate, would sit on my floor while I painted, not interrupting, just watching, and later he'd say, "I love how you light up." It wasn't about the art itself. It was the energy, the life I was breathing into my days. He didn't love me because I was waiting for him. He loved me because I was already whole, already glowing. I've seen this play out beyond my own story, too, in the women I've coached over the years. Take Mia, a client who came to me heartbroken. Her guy was drifting, pulling away, and she'd shrunk into the shadow of herself, always asking, "What's wrong with me?" She'd stopped doing the things that lit her up, yoga, gardening, anything, because she was so focused on holding on to him. I asked her, "What used to make you feel alive?" She hesitated, then said, "Yoga." I loved it. So we started there. Small steps, a class here, a stretch there. At first, it was just for her a way to reclaim some ground. But then something shifted. She'd come home from those sessions, sweaty and smiling, and her guy, who'd barely noticed her before, started looking up from his phone. "You're glowing," he'd say, half laughing. "I can't look away." Over weeks, he didn't just notice. He'd ask, "How was class?" or join her for a walk, drawn to that spark she'd reignited. She wasn't begging for his love anymore. She was living, and he couldn't resist being part of it. This concept, it's simple on the surface, but there's depth here, a kind of intellectual richness that makes it stick. When you chase your passions, whether it's dancing in your kitchen, writing stories late at night, or chasing dreams you've shelved, you're not just filling time. You're building a life, a world that's yours, and that confidence radiates. It's emotional intimacy in a way you might not expect. He doesn't just love you for what you do for him. He loves you for who you are, the you that exists beyond him. It's not about performing or proving. It's about being fully, unapologetically. I think of my own grandmother, a woman who'd knit these intricate scarves while my grandpa worked in the garage. She'd lose herself in the yarn, and he'd peek in, grinning. "You're a wonder." She didn't knit for him. She knit for her, and that's why he adored her. So how do you make this real? It's not complicated, but it takes intention. Start small. Pick something that stirs you. even if it's been years. For me, it was painting. For Mia, yoga. Maybe it's singing, hiking, cooking something wild. Doesn't matter what, just that it's yours. Set aside time, even an hour a week, and dive in, no excuses, no waiting for permission. When I started painting again, I'd lock my phone away, let the world fade, and just create. At first, it felt selfish. Shouldn't I be with someone? But then I'd see the canvas, my hands messy with color, and feel this quiet power. Share it if you want. Show him that sketch, that recipe, but don't do it for him. Do it for you, and let him feel the pull. Nate would ask, "What's this one about?" Not because I begged him to care, but because my glow made him curious. This secret, it's a paradox when you sit with it. Shining solo doesn't push him away. It makes him crave connection. It's mind-bending because we're taught love is about clinging, about being everything to him. But what if stepping into your own starlight fixes that relationship drift where he feels you're too needy? Mia's guy wasn't drifting because he didn't care. He was drifting because she dimmed, waiting for him to light her up. When she shone, he didn't feel pressure. He felt desire, a pull to be near her fire. It's the same with Nate. He'd linger longer, not out of duty, but because my spark was a world he wanted it on. And that's where this lands us. It solves that quiet ache where love feels one-sided, where he's slipping because you've lost yourself. But shining as your own star raises a question. How do you bridge that glow to him? How do you take this radiant you and weave it into us? That's where we're headed next. Our next secret, talking without words, where your presence speaks louder than anyone ever could. Number 3, speak through silence. Imagine locking eyes with him across the room. No word spoken, and yet he gets it. Your love, your trust, everything you're feeling in that fleeting, quiet moment. It's like a secret language, one that cuts through the noise and lands right where it matters. I stumbled into this with a partner years ago. Let's call him Daniel. And it was one of those lessons that snuck up on me. We'd had a fight, something petty like who forgot to lock the door, and the air was thick with tension. Normally, I'd keep talking, pushing, explaining, trying to smooth it over with words piling on words. But that night, I was too tired to argue. I just sank into the armchair across from him, looked at him, not with anger, but with this steady, open gaze, and let the silence sit between us. He fidgeted at first, then met my eyes, and after a beat, he softened, his shoulders dropping. "I feel you," he said, voice low, like he'd heard everything I hadn't said. That moment stuck with me. It wasn't about winning. It was about connecting, and silence did what my chatter never could. That's the heart of this third secret, speaking through silence. It's communication beyond the constant hum of chatter, where silence itself becomes a voice, carrying more weight than a dozen explanations. It's mind-bending because we're so conditioned to think love needs noise, endless talking, debating, filling every gap with sound. But what if a gaze, a touch, a pause can say volumes? What if the absence of words lets him feel you in a way that words sometimes muddle? I've seen this truth unfold not just in my own life, but with the couples I've coached over the years, and it's a quiet revolution every time. Take Jen and Mark, a couple I worked with who'd hit a wall, yelling matches over dishes, of all things, that spiraled into cold silences, the kind that hurt more than shouting. Jen would try to talk it out. "Why can't you help more?" But it only fanned the flames. I suggested something different. "Next time, don't argue. Just sit with him." She looked skeptical, but she tried it. One night, after another dish standoff, she didn't say a word. She sat at the table, slid her hand onto his, and let her eyes rest on him. Soft, not accusing. Mark froze, then sighed, the fight draining out of him. "I forgot we're a team," he said, squeezing her hand back. That silence wasn't empty. It was full, brimming with trust, and it pulled them back together. This idea, it's simple but profound. Next time he's upset, maybe he's pacing after a bad day or brooding over something you don't quite get, resist the urge to fill the air. Look at him, really look, with eyes that say, "I'm here, I see you." Maybe rest a hand on his arm, light and steady, and let the silence carry what words might tangle. I tried this with Daniel more than once after that first night. When he'd come home rattled from work, I'd sit on the couch, pat the spot beside me, and just be there, no questions, no rush. He'd ease in, sometimes talking, sometimes not, but always softening. You don't know how much this helps. It's communication stripped bare. He'll feel loved, not because you said it, but because you showed it deeply in a way that lingers. But here's where it gets interesting. Silence isn't passive. It's a choice, a strength, a deliberate act of trust. It's not about shutting down or giving up. It's about stepping into a power that says, I don't need to force this. I'm steady. It solves those marriage clashes where words turn into weapons, escalating until you're both bruised. Jen and Mark weren't fighting about dishes. They were fighting about feeling unseen, and silence cut through that noise. What if that quiet power needs a voice sometimes, though? What if love grows not just in the hush, but in the words you choose next? That's where we're headed. Our next secret, speaking your heart, clear and kind, building on this stillness with a strength all its own. Number 4, voice your heart gently. What if the bravest thing you could do isn't raising your voice to be heard, but whispering what really matters, softly, steadily, like a secret you trust him to hold? I learned this one with Sam, the guy you've heard about from those earlier moments, the sanctuary nights, the painting days. Back then, I had this habit of bottling things up when something bothered me. If he'd forget to call or snap after a long day, I'd swallow it, stuff it down into this tight little knot in my chest, thinking it's fine, I'll get over it. But it wasn't fine. It'd fester, and I'd either stay quiet too long or explode later, neither of which got us anywhere. Then one night, something clicked. He'd come home late, no text, and I felt that familiar churn. Hurt, ignored. Instead of clamming up or letting it boil over, I took a breath, sat him down, and said, I need you to hear me. My voice was low, steady, not a shout, not a plea, just clear. He paused, looked at me, really looked, and nodded. Okay, I'm listening. And he did, really listened. That moment wasn't loud, but it was powerful, like a door swinging open between us. That night with Sam. It's the root of this 4th secret, voicing your heart gently. This is about communication that blends courage with calm, a way of speaking that's significant because it builds trust without shattering the peace you've worked so hard to create. It's not about silencing yourself or tiptoeing around his feelings. It's about stepping into your truth with a kind of quiet bravery that invites him in, not pushes him out. I didn't realize how much I needed this until I started living it. And it's a lesson I've carried into every relationship since, and shared with every couple I've coached. We're so often taught that love means big declarations or heated standoffs. Stand your ground. Make him hear you. But what if the real strength lies in softness? What if the way to his heart isn't through volume, but through vulnerability delivered with care? Let me bring this to life a bit more, because it's not just a theory, it's a shift I've seen work wonders. Take Lisa, a woman I coached a couple of years back. She was with a guy who'd forget dates, birthdays, dinners, little plans they'd made, and it ate at her. Her instinct was to snap, and I get it, I've been there. You forgot again, she'd bark, arms crossed, and he'd shut down, mumbling, sorry, before retreating to his phone or the garage. It was a cycle, her anger, his withdrawal, and it was pulling them apart. When we started talking, I asked her, what if he didn't yell? What if you told him how it feels, not what he did wrong? She laughed. He'll think I'm weak, but she was game to try. Next time it happened, he spaced on a movie night. She took a deep breath, sat beside him, and said, I feel off when this happens. Can we fix it? No edge, no attack, just her heart, lay bare. He looked surprised, then softened. I didn't mean to. Let's plan it now. He stepped up, not out of guilt, but because her calm opened a door he wanted to walk through. That's the core of this secret. It's about speaking your needs, not hurling accusations. With Sam, I didn't say, you're always late. I said, I need you to hear me, and it shifted the air. Lisa didn't say, you're careless. She said, I feel off, and it invited him in. It's simple but profound. Try, I want us closer, or I miss you when this happens, instead of pointing fingers. That vulnerability, it's not weakness. It's intimacy he'll cherish, not betray. I saw this years later with another partner. Let's call him Ryan. He'd get wrapped up in work, leaving me feeling sidelined, and I'd stew until I couldn't. One evening, I sat across from him, coffee in hand, and said, "I feel distant lately. Can we change that?" My voice was gentle, my eyes steady, and he put his laptop down. I didn't see it. "Let's fix it." That softness didn't just get his attention, it got his heart. This isn't always easy. It takes practice, especially when you're hurt or wired to fight. I'd spent years thinking silence was my only alternative to yelling. Either stuff it down or let it rip. But this middle path, this gentle voicing, it's a skill. Start small. Next time something stings, pause, breathe, find your calm. Then speak. "I need this from you," or "This matters to me." Keep it about you, not as flaws. I coached Emily, whose fiance would cancel plans last minute. She'd fume. "You don't care," until she tried. "I feel let down when this happens. Can we work on it?" He didn't just hear her. He held her, promising better. That's trust blooming, because you're not attacking, you're sharing, and he feels safe to respond. Here's the catch, though. Speaking gently demands he meets you halfway. It's not a magic wand. If he tunes out, that's on him, not you. But it tackles that relationship rut where he stops listening because all he hears is noise. With Lisa, her guy could have ignored her calm plea, but he didn't. He rose to it. With Sam, he could have brushed me off, but he leaned in. It's a two-way street, and when it works, it's gold. He loves you more because you've shown strength and softness. But what if love isn't just about these quiet talks? What if it grows in play, in lightness, not just the weight of words? That's where we're headed next. Our next secret, laughing together, where joy becomes the thread that ties you tighter. Number 5, light up with laughter. Think of the last time you laughed so hard with him that the rest of the world just melted away. Where it's just you two, caught in this bubble of silliness, and everything else feels small. I've got this memory that still warms me up whenever I think of it. A rainy night with Sam, the guy you've heard me mention before. It was one of those dreary evenings where the sky wouldn't quit, and we were holed up inside, tangled in a mess of blankets on the couch. I don't even remember how it started. Maybe I'd tripped over the edge of the throw, nearly face-planting, and he'd smirked, graceful as ever. I fired back, says the guy who snores like a chainsaw, and suddenly we were off, roasting each other's quirks. My clumsy streak, his knack for leaving socks everywhere. We laughed until our sides ached, tears streaking down, and in this quiet pause after, he looked at me, still chuckling, and said, "This is us." Those 3 words, they weren't grand, but they felt like everything, like we'd stumbled into the heart of what made us work. That rainy night, it's the seed of this 5th secret, lighting up with laughter. This is about emotional intimacy woven through joy, and it's so relevant because laughter has this sneaky way of cutting through tension, of binding you together when life tries to pull you apart. It's not about forcing it or turning into a comedian. It's about letting that lightness bubble up naturally, a spark that reminds him you're not just his partner, but his joy. I didn't fully grasp this until that moment with Sam, how a good laugh could strip away the weight we'd been carrying, his long days, my quiet worries, and leave us feeling closer than any serious talk ever had. It's a simple truth, but it runs deep. Joy isn't just a bonus in love. It's a glue, a lifeline that keeps you tethered when the storms roll in. I've seen this magic work beyond my own story, too, in the couples I've coached over the years. Take Jen, a woman I worked with who'd hit a rough patch with her husband, Mark. He'd come home moody, work stress, the kind that turns a guy into a walking thundercloud, and she'd match it, snapping back or retreating into silence. They were stuck, drifting in this heavy fog, and it showed, little digs, cold shoulders. I asked her, "When's the last time you laughed together?" She frowned. "We don't have time for that." But she humored me. One night, Mark slumped in, grumbling about a coworker, and instead of her usual cheer up already, she grinned. "Grumpy's kinda cute on you." He blinked, caught off guard, then snorted, a small crack in the gloom. "Oh yeah? You're no picnic either," he shot back, teasing her habit of stealing the covers. They cracked up, the room softening, and she told me later, it was like we remembered each other. That laughter didn't fix his job, but it reconnected them, pulling them out of the slump. This secret, it's simple on the surface, but there's a richness to it that makes it stick. It's not about staging a comedy show or pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's about finding those little openings where play can slip in. With Sam, it was roasting our flaws. With Jen, it was a playful jab at Mark's mood. It could be poking fun at his terrible dance moves. 2 left feet, huh? Or sharing a silly story from your day, like the time I told Sam about nearly spilling coffee on my boss, complete with dramatic reenactment. He'd howl, "You're a disaster," and pull me close. That lightness, it's a gift you give each other, a reminder that love doesn't always have to be heavy. He'll start loving you not just as his partner, but as his joy, the one who brings a smile when the world's too much. And here's where it gets real. You don't need a perfect moment. Laughter finds a way. I've had nights with other partners where we'd be mid-disagreement, say, over whose turn it was to cook, and I'd catch his eye, mimic his stubborn pout, and we'd both dissolve, the fight forgotten. It's not avoidance. It's a reset, a way to say, we're bigger than this. I coached a couple, Sarah and Tom, who'd bicker over bills, tense sharp, until she started humming a goofy tune mid-argument. Money, money, money. He'd laugh despite himself. You're ridiculous, and they'd talk it out calmer. That spark of play, it's intimacy in motion, a thread that ties you tighter. But joy's tricky. It needs trust to land, a sense that he'll catch the lightness and toss it back. It solves that marriage slump where life's too heavy, where you've forgotten how to smile together. With Jen and Mark, her tease worked because he trusted her love behind it. What if that trust means letting him breathe, though? What if laughter's just the start, and love needs room to bloom? That's where we're headed next. Our next secret, space that pulls him back, where freedom becomes the tie that binds. Number 6, give him space to miss you. Ever notice how a little distance can flip the script? How it can make him chase you instead of drifting away? I learned this one with Sam, the guy who's been threading through these stories, the sanctuary couch, the laughter-soaked nights. Early on, I clung to him like he was oxygen, texts piling up if he was late, calls just to hear his voice, this quiet panic that if I wasn't right there, he'd slip away. I tell myself it was love, staying connected, keeping us tight, but it was more like fear dressed up as devotion. Then something shifted. I don't know if it was exhaustion or a rare spark of clarity, but I backed off. One weekend, he said he'd hang out with his buddies, and instead of my usual flurry, "When will you be back? Call me." I just smiled, "Have a good time." I let him go. No strings, no guilt trips. And you know what? He came back. Not just physically, but really back, grinning, pulling me close, saying, "I missed you." That hit me hard. Space isn't loss. It's longing, a pull that grows when you loosen your grip. That moment with Sam, it's the heartbeat of this sixth secret, giving him space to miss you. This is trust in action, raw and real. And it's significant because freedom doesn't weaken love. It deepens it, turns it into something he chooses, not something he's tethered to. I didn't see this at first. Clinging felt safe, like I was holding us together. But with Sam, that weekend apart showed me I'd been wrong. He didn't need my constant presence to stay. He needed room to feel the ache of my absence, to realize what I meant to him. It's a lesson that stuck with me, one I've carried into every relationship since. And it's a truth I've seen light up the couples I've coached. We're so often taught that love is about being inseparable, always in each other's orbit. But what if stepping back is what pulls him closer? What if space is the soil where longing grows? Let me bring this into focus with a story from someone I worked with. Claire, a woman whose love was drowning in her own good intentions. She'd been with her guy for years, and she'd smothered him without meaning to. "Where are you? Who are you with?" Text firing off if he was out too long. She'd laugh about it. "I'm just invested." But he'd started pulling back, quieter, more distant. It was breaking her heart, and she couldn't figure out why. When we talked, I asked, "What if you let him breathe?" She balked. "He'll forget me." But she was desperate enough to try. He loved golf. So one Saturday, instead of her usual be quick routine, she handed him his club, smiled, and said, "Have fun. No rush." She told me later her hands were shaking as he left. She was terrified he'd drift further. But that evening, he rushed home, all grins. "I couldn't wait to see you." He didn't just come back. He was eager, like the space had lit a fire under him. That shift wasn't magic. It was trust, her letting go so he could choose to return. This secret, it's simpler than it seems, but there's a depth here that makes it powerful. It's not about ignoring him or playing hard to get. It's about trusting that your bond doesn't need a leash. With Sam, I stopped hovering, and he'd call me. "What are you up to?" Because he wanted to, not because I demanded it. Claire saw it too. Her guy started texting her from the course. "Miss you already," not out of obligation, but desire. It's practical. Next time he's off to do his thing, friends, a hobby, whatever, try it. Say, "Enjoy your night," and mean it. No pings, no pressure. Watch what happens. He'll feel the freedom and choose you, rushing back because you're not a cage, but a home. That trust. It's why he stays true, why he loves you deeper. I've lived this beyond Sam, too. With another partner, let's call him Jake. I'd get antsy when he'd vanish into his music, headphones on for hours. I'd hover, "You done yet?" Until I let it go. I'd paint, read, let him be, and he'd emerge. I needed that. Now I need you. That space made us stronger. He'd seek me out, not flee. It's a quiet strength, trusting he'll come back, and it shifts everything. Here's the twist, though. Space tests your trust too. It's not just about him. It fixes that clingy, spiral, threatening relationships, where you're holding so tight you push him away. Claire's fear faded when she saw he chose her. My panic with Sam eased when he returned. But what if love needs more than room? What if it thrives when you cheer him on? That's where we're headed next. Our next secret, lifting him up, where your faith in him becomes the spark that binds. Thanks for being here. If this stirred you, hit that like. It helps spread the light. Subscribe if you're in, and let's talk. Comment. Which reason hits you? I'll read every one. See you soon.